Hello, today we are going to talk about reactive functions in RShiny. Why do we need to focus and give a special video on this function? You remember that a Shiny app, like almost all websites, are typically made out of two components. You have one component that we called user interface, which is the website. So what the user really sees, when you think website, this is what you think about. And there is another part that in RShiny is called server. This one is invisible to the user, but it's really important because this is when most of the computing and the data log is going to take part. So typically when the user does something on the user interface, when he clicks on something, there is a communication between the user interface and the server, and then it comes back to the user interface. Among other denomination, the different names for these parts are front end and back end. As you can see, the names typically highlight the fact that the front end is the one close to the user and the back end is in the back. The reactive functions are typically at this position, which means that they are here for the server to wait that something happens and then to start a process. The server cannot run everything every 1 second. It will be it will consume too much resource. So it's better if it just wait. How does it work? We are here in the server function of the application, and the function is called observe event. So this is the important function to remember. It takes two arguments. The first argument in the round parenthesis is the input. So the input, if you are in the server, you remember a server is input output. So you have the input here, input, and the output here. And the input typically comes from the user interface. So if we look into the user interface, we are going to look at that later. We see that there is a slider input. So slider input, this is a RShiny widget where the user can select a number. So it's a number between 10 and 100, and the variable where this value is stored is called endpoint, n_point. It is accessible through in_point $point. So this is the first argument, and then the second argument is what the function must do when they see something changing. So this is in curly bracket. Take care, it's a common mistake to forget these brackets. It's this one. So remember, a round bracket and then curly brackets, and there you have the process to be run. You can see that in this particular case, the process is a render plot, so it creates a graph, and it sends this graph to output as a scatter plot. So if we go back here, as an input, we have a number, for instance, 22, and as an output, we have a plot. So a plot, it really means like you used to do with x and y, and here it's a scatter plot. It uses the function render plot you have already seen before. It creates the data using the input points. So this is where also we have a second function that comes into account called reactive. So reactive means that this function is going to react to the input, which means that she's going to run only when she sees something different here. So if nothing has changed here, it's not going to run. It just runs when there is something different. So it's really close to observe events. you can see here that it sends back a data frame of two vector of just random numbers. These random numbers here, I give you an example. What happens if you run this function to create 1,000,000 of points? You have a Gaussian. Okay, norm is for normal. Normal is another name for Gaussian, and R is for random. So it's a way to create random numbers from a Gaussian. So we create here n random numbers, we put them into a table in a data frame, and then we send it back. And this is this data that afterwards we use to create a scatter plot. How does it look like? So let's stop and run the application. Here you can see we have I invite you to always start with the user interface to understand. The user interface starts as a fluid page. So the fluid page describe everything that happens here. We have a title, observing events in Shiny, which is here. Then we have in the layout 2 types of panel. We have the sidebar panel. Here, this is where typically you can have commands if you want to load data, select variable, it's going to happen here. And you have the main panel, which is described, see, main panel, sidebar panel, main panel, sidebar panel on the left, main panel on the right, and the main panel, which is here, contains the graph, so scatter plot, which is created here. So when we select a number here, we give endpoints. This endpoints goes into input endpoints, and in return we have this. In practice, it means that if I take to 10, we should have a graph with 10 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can see that each time I choose another value, we have another graph. It's really fast, especially because we have a really wise use of this function here. If I had a different widget here, observe events could also listen to different inputs. So it's particularly important when you want to create an AirShiny page with different widgets. Thank you very much.